Hey everybody, Rosematter here, and welcome to part 13 of my Great Ace Attorney Chronicles Let's Play. In the last episode, we began the fourth trial to defend Natsume, and didn't start out well. We had kind of a biased, in my opinion, a biased jury, considering that we had two people from the previous trial that I kind of accused of potentially being murderers, and also the wife of Garadeb. And during all of that and the cross-examinations and everything, we learned that a book of Garadeb's actually ended up in the hands of the victim. So that paints a big question of how did the book end up there and why? Was it placed there on purpose? Was it just happenstance? I don't know. But I assume with everything leading up to now, we're going to be putting, I think his name is John. We're going to be putting him on the stand and finding out how his book ended up near the victim, and if he knows more about the crime than he's letting on. So without further ado, let's get back into the trial. I considered the defense counsel's request for a further summation examination of the jury. Oh yes, this is where we were leaving off with the summation, because everybody pretty much said Natsume was guilty. But I'm assuming at some point we got to put John on the stand. But let's take care of the summation examination first. And I have determined that the court must uphold the defense's judicial right to this procedure. So, counsel, you will now proceed with your second summation examination. I presume the jury is ready, Mr. Foreman. We are, my lord. Very good. In that case, I must ask each of you now to state clearly and concisely for the court the grounds on which you find the defendant guilty of this crime. The accused left behind evidence at the scene, didn't he? Those 3 books of his. If there was some novel alternative explanation about how the victim was stabbed, I might reconsider. Even if the woman was throwing books, it can't be related to this crime if the window was closed, can it? Dearie me, it was only a little book, hardly life-threatening, even with a direct hit. Oh! Was it the book that knocked her out? But once again, how the book wouldn't have ended up directly in her hand unless someone placed it there. But then there's also the point of, like, the knife. Who did the knife belong to? I'm guessing it's that weird actor guy. For some reason, maybe he had a knife and he stabbed her. Because, like, he was brought up so quickly. I have to believe if they introduce a character like that, he has to come back in some way. Look, I just want to get this over with. If I don't bring home some pay tonight, I'll be in a tidy bit of trouble. Come to think of it, when we had a fire at home a while ago, it gave me the sneezes. Okay, I'm gonna pit that about the whole thing about, like, the window was closed, and maybe home being, like, the sneezes. So maybe that's why they opened up the window to let the smoke out. Yes, considerably more tangible arguments from all members of the jury this time around, it seems. With one notable exception, of course. My learned student friend was unable to find fault in the previous witness testimony. So the court must accept the fact it was indeed the accused seen fleeing from the scene. And moreover, no one else was even at the scene to commit the crime. Well, if the eyewitnesses are correct, it would seem as if the conclusion is somewhat set in stone. I fail to see how it can be argued any other way. That means I'm afraid that during the summation examination, it's essential that you establish some other tangible explanation for the facts. Oh boy, okay. But how? What would even constitute a tangible explanation here? Isn't it obvious? Who stabbed the woman, and how? Those 2 details are all you need to provide. Simply give us a name and a method by which the attacker was oh boy, okay, yeah, just do that, super easy. A name and a method by which the attack was conducted. And there I was thinking this might be hard. But Mr. Naruhodo, you have to do it, otherwise this really will be where the trial ends. Ugh, no pressure then. That's quite enough preamble. Proceed with the summation examination, please. I presume you're prepared, counsel. Oh, yes, my lord. All right, Ryunosuke, focus your mind now. Clearly, the key to the summation examination is going to be juror number 4, the maid, or should I say, Mrs. Garadeb. We have a book that disappeared from the Garadeb's house on the evening of the incident, and the 4th book found in the victim's hand. There must be a way to link the two. Yes, that's what we have to find, using every technique I've learned in my short career so far, whatever it takes. Don't forget to keep an eye on Mrs. Garadeb and how she reacts, even to things other people say. Oh, okay, so we can have reactions. Did that happen in the last one? Was there reactions within the jury itself? Okay, this might be a new thing. So we have to establish that the window was open. And that's how the book got there. When in doubt, I just press everything, of course, first. But as we now know, there were 4 books, not 3. Well, what difference does it make? There's every possibility that the 4th book, in fact, belongs to the defendant's landlord. Yes, that's the part I have a problem with. Sorry? Well, at the point the woman was stabbed, this landlord fellow was at home, wasn't he? Enjoying a fiery scrap with his wife or something, you said. Oh, yeah, I guess that's true. I kind of put him at the opposite of the scene of the crime. I gave him an alibi. That's not exactly how I put it, no. Well, anyway, the point is, the fellow and his wife were somewhere else when it happened. I think that's what you call a strong alibi. So, it couldn't have been the landlord who did it, which only leaves the Nipponese fellow. Honestly, I can't see what all this palaver's about. It's a done deal, isn't it? I suppose it is, since I've nothing witty left to say. If there was some novel alternative explanation, I might reconsider. So, you might be willing to change your decision, you mean? Oh my, such delight on your face, but I'm afraid I shan't be swayed by emotion. Despite what you may think of me, I am a very modern, metropolitan, and rational woman. That's great. If one reads the morning papers, it's all forgotten by tea time, isn't it? So why read them in the first place? You see, modern, metropolitan, and rational thinking, wouldn't you say? That sounds ignorant to me. And not at all extreme. As I see it, an overwhelmingly suspicious Japanese man has been implicated by overwhelmingly strong testimony. So, despite 1 or 2 minor puzzlements, I do declare the man is overwhelmingly guilty. Modern, metropolitan, and rational logic, wouldn't you say? And slightly racist. Overwhelmingly. But us modern gals are always delighted to embrace new fads, you know. So I'd be only too happy to consider an exciting new theory if you could come up with one. I'd be happy to do that too, if only I could. Let's do our very best not to disappoint the modern and metropolitan young lady. Right. I'm glad you omitted rational there. Alright, even if the woman was throwing books, it can't be related to this crime if the window was closed. But what about the possibility that the window was open? What about it? I mean, there's just no way it could have been. How can you be so sure? The prosecutor fellow over there said it earlier, didn't he? Winters in London are no joke. You don't want to invite that sort of cold indoors. So, no, that window wasn't open. Us Londoners like sitting by the fire and staying warm, you see. But you couldn't categorically state the window wasn't open, could you? It just wasn't. They wouldn't have opened it. Then what's the point of even having windows, huh? Counsel, will kindly refrain from childish bickering. Sorry. Somehow, I need to show there's an undeniable possibility that the window was open. Because this young man isn't going to budge otherwise. Alright, she's the one we really have to press. We have to get her to confirm that the window was open. But the little book was on fire at the time, was it not? Yeah, like, exactly. You wouldn't want to keep that in your house. You'd pitch it out the window. With flames of love, I'll have you know. There's really no such thing as a loving incendiary bomb. Well, he brought it upon himself. It's playing with fire to betray a fiery love. Isn't it? Well, don't you agree? Oh, well, any kind of betrayal is certainly a bad thing, yes. But I think the argument might have arisen out of your misunderstanding, Mrs. Garadeb. Never you mind that. The point is, we were just having a jovial little dispute, nothing more. And I won't have any more of these suggestions that it was anything whatsoever to do with this crime. Right, well, we'll see about that. But what about juror number 5? He doesn't seem to be turning a hair at Mrs. Garadeb's relentless onslaughts. It's almost as though he's used to it. Oh, what a gentle soul he is. Oh, is she maybe having an affair with him? What? That would be crazy. What's the term? When you're doing something and you accuse somebody else of doing it? There's a term for it. What is it? It's not displacement. It's projection. She's projecting because because she's having an affair, she assumes that her husband is also having an affair. So, this will be interesting. I'm like that modern metropolitan woman. I want something spicy happening. I want to make this interesting. You just want to get this over with? How can you sit there and say something like that? A man's future is at stake here. Well, him and me both then, like I said before. What? I told you already, I'm a day laborer, aren't I? If I don't bring home some readies with me tonight, you'll find me floating face down in the Thalmes tomorrow morning. Unless, maybe he's also... maybe another reason why he might be used to that woman, to Mrs. Garadeb, is maybe he's also somebody who is renting from them. Maybe he's one of the tenants as well. And he's saying, like, he needs money to pay their rent. You heard me. My missus isn't one to mess about, you know. She can be fierce, believe you me. Oh, but that kind of sounds like Mrs. Garadeb at the same time. Another shining example of marital bliss, then. A situation like this cropped up the other day. It was, well, wait. I'm so confused. Do you know, it's funny, but I can't quite remember. Sorry? It was too frightening, that's the thing. I must have blocked it out. Helpful. I wonder if Mr. Beat will ever be dragged into the Thalmes by his scarf. Don't even go there, Miss Susato. There must be some way to jog his memory about this. Come to think of it, we had a fire at home a while ago. It gave me the seat. This is what I want. I want to pit him against the guy who talks about how the window wasn't open. Maybe I can go into more detail. Like, did you open the window when the fire was on at your house? Does that have anything to do with your decision about the defendant's culpability in this case? Sorry? What's that? You'll have to speak up, lad. Could you tell us more about that fire? It was last winter. My grandchildren baked me a lovely cake on my birthday. It had 75 candles on the top, it did. What a sight to behold it was. You put candles on a cake? Was it some kind of devil worship? Of course not. It was an angel cake to celebrate my birthday, obviously. I guess it's also very different cultures. It seems that that's a common custom here in Great Britain, Mr. Naruhodo. Anyway, I mustered all my puff to blow them out. Only, I must have blown wrong somehow. The flames didn't go out, but candles went flying all over the room. The furniture caught, and everything went up. The whole place filled with smoke. Definitely sounds like devil worship to me. And by the sneezes, I presume you mean a cold. But how did you catch a cold from a fire? Because he opened the window and he caught a cold. What a fiasco it was. The grandchildren, bless them, threw water over me as they tried to put out the flames. And then, because the whole room had filled up with smoke, of course, they opened the window. We had to open all the windows to clear it. The windows. The biting winter air rushed over me like the devil dancing on my grave, it did. I caught a terrible cold from it. It put me in hospital for a while. I won't forget that birthday in a hurry. I knew it was devil worship all along. But something about this old man's story is playing on my mind for some reason. Alright, we got it. But I want to know more about the day laborer and Mrs. Garadeb. We need to demonstrate who, apart from Mr. Natsume, could have attacked the young woman on the street. As well as how he, or she, could have done it. Yes, but once again, the jurors' statements are full of personal prejudice. A lot of them seem convinced they're right, even in the face of logical arguments to the contrary. I think you're going to need to pit them against each other to force them to accept an alternative explanation. Yes. I don't necessarily need to find contradictions between their assertions. Just a connection might do the trick. Alright, I'll see what I can do. If anything stands out, I'll go in for a strike. That's the spirit. Oh wait, I can do the pit right now, can't I? So there we go. There we go.
Objection.
Those two juror statements clearly contradict one another. They do? How exactly, counsel? Don't point at me again, I told you it wasn't me. What's that, you say? Speak up, lad, speak up. Juror number 3, do you see? Oh, me? See what, sir? Did you hear juror number 6's account of his birthday celebrations last year? It seems, despite being a Londoner, he once opened his windows in the middle of winter. Well, yes, of course, because it was an emergency. I mean, obviously, if the room was filled with smoke from a fire, then you'd be mad not to open the... Oh! Exactly. On the day in question, at the time of the incident, there was a fire in the Garadeb household. And Mr. Garadeb had the following to say about it. The whole place filled with smoke. Oh, my hat! Oh! Wait. Let's go over here. There we go. Pursue.
Excuse me.
Juror number 4, do you have something to say about that? Mrs. Garadeb. Oh, dearie me. What is the meaning of this? How dare you imply I'm hiding who I really am? It's imperative that you confirm something for the court. So please, it's time to drop the pretense now. Well, what is this? When the fire started in your house that day, did you or your husband open the window? What? I beg your pardon? What are you insinuating? The room would have been thick with smoke after the carpet and bookcase caught fire as they did. In a situation like that, it's inconceivable that you wouldn't have opened the window. And what if we did? Oh, all right then. Yes, you're right. My husband was frantically trying to open the window, which can't have been easy, since I continued to give him a justly deserved book battering. Even though your house was on fire. Oh, you never stop throwing until the anger subsides. It would be terribly bad for the nerves to do otherwise. Of course. I should have realized. That's a significant step forward, Mr. Naruhodo. You've managed to establish that the window was open. We simply must have that added to Mrs. Garadeb's formal statement. Alright, now you mention it, yes, the window was open at the time. I'd clean forgotten, but it's true. Oh, sure you forgot.
Hold it.
The 4th book found at the scene of the crime shows very obvious signs of fire damage. And the title of the book is The Lion's Pride. The same title, in fact, as the book that Mr. Garadeb told us he'd been reading. Well, I really couldn't say. On the day in question, did you or did you not throw at your husband the copy of The Lion's Pride that he had been reading? I did. It was the first thing I could lay my hands on, so I hurled it straight at him. And now you come to mention it, yes. He was rather enjoying reading it, you're right. Why did you not reveal this information to the court from the outset? Because I couldn't, you insolent little man. I didn't remember. At times like that, you pick up and throw whatever you can lay your hands on, as well as you know. I really don't. I barely noticed I was throwing a book, much less the title of it. Oh, oh! Oh, hello. I can't wait to get into more about this. What's their connection?
Excuse me.
What is it, juror number 5? You know something. I've remembered what it was. The memory I'd blocked out. Ah. It was listening to what this granny was saying. Brought it all flooding back. Who are you calling a granny, you cheeky devil? I'm Mrs. Garadeb, or the maid, I'll have you know. The man doesn't even flinch. Please tell me that's not because he's used to being hit all the time. It was about 2 weeks ago now. I just gotten back home after work, like. I'd put my hand in my pocket for the wages I just earned that day, and I can't believe, I'm starting to think now, okay, they're not, for some reason I thought he was used to her specifically hitting him, and I love how I'm like, they're having an affair, or something like that, but I'm like, wait, he probably has a wife who's the same. I put my hand in my pocket for the wages I just earned that day, and I nearly died. There was a hole. Every last penny had dropped out. Oh dear, what a disaster. You haven't heard the half of it, boy. Oh? The wife was cutting up some chicken at the time. I could hardly get the words out, but I told her straight. I've lost the day's wages, love. Next thing I knew, the blade was whistling past my ear. Stuck into the wall next to me, it did, about an inch deep. No words, just terror. I could smell it then, you know, that god-awful stench of the Thalms. I was sure I was going to end up face down in the muddy banks that day, I can tell you. Now, that's a real disaster, isn't it? I'll never use the word lightly again. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is this. When women lose their rag, they'll throw anything at you. Knives, hatchets, hammers, you name it. Mr. Naruhodo, you mustn't think all women are so short-tempered and unrefined. Susato, you flip people, okay? I was like, you're very refined, and you're very sweet and gentle, but you've got that side of you too. No, I wasn't thinking that. Please don't flip me. Throwing household objects at people as well. It's so uncivilized. I'd rather throw people. At least attack with honor, using a bow or the like. What? Attack? Who are you going to attack? Never mind. Anyway, this man's words could be rather significant, I think. Alright, we'll come back to the bow and arrow thing later, if I dare. Alright, a woman in a rage will hurl almost anything at you. The kitchen knife really brought that home to me. Okay, let's push that a little bit more.
Hold it!
Your wife really threw a kitchen knife at you? That's right. She was chopping meat with it. Had a tidy edge on it, believe me. Still, it's all memories, isn't it? It started with that smile she threw me when we were courting. And since then, a list of things she's thrown at me has grown along with our relationship. There was a cup, then a glass, then a pot, a kettle, a chair, a wardrobe, a cooker, a bathtub. Your wife must be even beefier than you. And things came to a head last week when she threw me right into the thumbs. Still, she's not so bad when she's calmed down. She's a little sweetheart, really. I'm so happy for you. If you want to know what I think this whole idea of ladies first that we're so obsessed with this in this country was thought up by some clever lads who've been tossed in the thumbs a few too many times by their wives. That's a very interesting theory. What a terrible thought. On the face of it, this juror's statement just sounds like a really extreme anecdote. But I think it might turn out to be an extremely powerful weapon. A weapon I might be able to use to make the jurors accept an alternative explanation here. Oh, right. There was the woman who was like, I'll accept an alternative theory if you can come up with one. And throwing a knife. Like the knife in the woman's back. Oh, shit. Okay, we got it. All right. At least I'm pretty sure we got it. Let me try this out and see. So the window was open when the Garadebs were arguing that day. Yes, Mrs. Garadeb had finally admitted to it, which is a very significant victory for the defense. I feel like the fog's starting to clear. An alternative explanation to this case is starting to show. How crazy would that be if, like, the woman, if Mrs. Garadeb then took a knife and threw that and whipped it into the victim's back? And then she was the one who actually killed the woman. But then, once again, there's the whole thing about the book being placed in the woman's hand. I find it very hard to believe that the book just happened to get whipped out and perfectly fall into the woman's hand, the victim's hand. There's more to this than that. Okay, so we want to pit her. This is a little bit of a long shot. Like in real life, the window one, I'm like, okay, I see the logic here, but this?
Objection.
Those two statements clearly have a deeply significant connection. Good grief, you mean they don't contradict each other? Explain, counsel, at once. Juror number 2, do you think perhaps that this could be one such novel alternative? Oh my, whatever do you mean? An alternative explanation as to how the victim was stabbed in the back. What are you talking about? We've demonstrated that the fourth book, The Lion's Pride, that was found at the scene of the crime, originated in Mr. Garadeb's room on the top floor of his house. Therefore, it's equally possible that some other object besides the book. Oh wow, he's actually insinuating that the knife got thrown and hit the woman in the back. Oh shit, could have found its way from the Garadeb household to the street below. What's that now? Oh, maybe they did it and oh shit, like what if Mrs. Garadeb threw that? They realized what had happened, so they ran down and they put the book in the woman's hand to make it seem like, I don't know. But I would feel like if they would have taken the book and brought it back home instead of leaving it at the scene of the crime. After all, Mrs. Garadeb could have thrown any number of different objects at her husband. Isn't that right, juror number 4? I don't think that's the case. I don't think she threw the knife. What are you insinuating now, you little beanpole? Plus, I feel like she would have, if she had stabbed the woman, she probably would have run over and taken the knife out of her back as well, because they could maybe, if it was like a, what's the word I'm thinking of? It was like a special knife, if maybe they could trace it back to the husband. I'm beginning to think that ever since the true origins of this book came to light, perhaps she's had a feeling this might be what happened. Oh, I was like, does she, because she said she didn't even remember doing it, so maybe she thinks deep down that she threw the knife, and she doesn't remember throwing the knife, but I don't think she actually did it. Now you listen here, you Eastern Gala. As the foreman of this jury, I demand a straight answer. You give us this yarn about some other object making its way out of the house, but what? What was it? I'm really taking a big gamble here. That was a bold accusation to make, but I haven't any real evidence to back it up. But I'm certain that at the very least, this warrants further investigation. All right, Mr. Foreman, I'll try to explain the defense's theory. The other object that found its way from the Garadeb household to the scene of the crime was... Okay, it says it's a commonplace folding knife, so unless it has any sort of markings or a name, how crazy would that be if it had John's name on it? Then it would be like, okay, well, that would be harder for Mrs. Garadeb to explain away.
Take that!
Juror number 4, Mrs. Garadeb. What? What now? I must apologize in advance for this. But I need you to confirm something else for the court. This knife. Have you ever seen this knife before? Oh shit. Oh no, is it? Good Lord, Counsel, what on earth are you doing? That's the weapon that was lodged into the victim's back, man. My lord, remember that when the victim was attacked, Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb were in the throes of an argument. Mrs. Garadeb was hurling anything she could at her husband, who had been backed up against the window. A window that had been opened to clear the smoke, and through which a book sailed to land at the crime scene. You can't seriously believe that. The book was found in the victim's grasp. Yes, this is what we need to confirm. Are you saying it flew out of the window and across the street to land neatly in her hand? Huh. Even my missus hasn't got an aim like that. Yes, I admit, there are many details we don't yet understand. But that's the point. That's precisely why we must not allow this trial to end. Not right now. Oh my. Mrs. Garadeb, your answer, please. Have you seen this knife before or not? Oh, oh shit. Ah, they do say it's commonplace, so... Interesting, interesting. My lord. I wish to change my decision. I'm a woman of my word, after all. Thank you, madam. Yes, I agree. I certainly didn't see this coming, but... I just don't think it would be right for this trial to come to an end now with so many unanswered questions. Mr. Foreman. I'd have to agree. Not that I think the granny did it, mind. I don't think so either. Yes, you know what? I'm not quite happy about this at the moment either. All together now, ladies and gents. Ah, wait. Oh, Mrs. Garadeb's gone. And interesting that the old guy, he didn't change his verdict. We did it. Yeah, let's remove Mrs. Garadeb from this jury because she's clearly biased. So, and she is a potential culprit. Congratulations, Mr. Naruhodo. So, as a result of the defense's summation examination, a number of jurors' leanings have changed. 2 jurors called guilty against 4 now calling innocent. Accordingly, the opinion of this court is divided, and this trial will continue. Zeke's has been very quiet. Now then, Lord Van Zeeks, how does the prosecution wish to proceed? This trial is rapidly descending into a farce. Like a quart wine, the first few sips are bitter enough. But what follows is so repugnant, it's good for nothing, save the gutter. If I may, Lord Van Zeeks, the defense has just put forward a credible alternative explanation for what happened. Credible? Is that your considered opinion, Mr. Foreman? The defense's argument is a joke to which I barely know how to respond, but let me start by insisting that you must all familiarize yourself better with the relative positions of those places being discussed. What do you mean by that? What's his angle this time? It should already be more than apparent that between the crime scene and the Garadeb household runs a rather wide street, Briar Road, which means that the distance from the Garadeb's house to the scene is some, yes, 15 yards. Let me see, 15 yards. That's around 14 meters. 14 meters? Oh, that's a little farther than I'd imagined. And as you ladies and gentlemen of the jury rightly noted as having portentous significance, the 4th book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, the smoldering book, wantonly hurled by the lady of the house, traveled some 15 yards to land on the opposite side of the road, neatly between the collapsed victim's fingers and thumb. I'm guessing somebody saw that happen, and they put the book there on purpose to cover up their involvement and pin it on whoever was in that house. Is that your final conclusion, my learned and deluded friend? And did the jackknife follow a near-identical trajectory to plunge into the middle of the victim's back? This fantasy is somewhat stretching the notion of having a bad day for the victim, I think. Maybe same thing with the knife, too? Also, I can't imagine that if Mrs. Garadeb threw it, it was like the knife was sticking out. Maybe it was closed, but it also went out the window. Somebody found it and for some reason used it to stab the victim. Even those pathetic serialized detective stories have more believable plots. There's nothing I can say to that. That prosecutor loves the sound of his own voice. Miss Usato, serialized detective stories are pathetic, are they? How dare he? Oh, you've unleashed the beast now. Maybe let's pick our battles here. My lord, might I be allowed to speak? As judicial assistant, you may speak for the defense, yes. Go ahead. The prosecution may consider the idea fantasy, but what the defense has postulated was believable enough to persuade the jury to change its leaning. And as such, the court has a duty to explore this alternative explanation as thoroughly as possible. To that end, Juror number 4, Mrs. Joan Garadeb, must be called to testify and submit to cross-examination. Saints alive! A cross-examination of a juror? Order, order, order. Well, this is highly irregular. It's unprecedented for a member of the jury to be summoned to the witness stand.
Objection!
And unnecessary. Lord Van Zeeks? There are already witnesses in the stand whose testimony the defense may further cross-examine. If my learned friend's partial theory has any truth to it, then both a burning book and a jackknife must have flown through the sky before this couple's eyes. And we must assume they would be able to testify accordingly. Maybe they're hiding something. Maybe knowing the fact that, like, it's a policeman, that they would just take everything that they would say at their words, so maybe they're omitting something. What say you witnesses? Yes, sir. Constable Rowley Beats reporting for duty, sir. Raleigh. I still haven't figured out. I'm gonna go with Raleigh again. Well. Good morning, officer. Sorry for dozing until now. Sir, I haven't slept for a month on account of a villain who's appeared on my beat, sir. Oh, they're so heroic, those London bobbies. Patricia, my darling, I've been neglecting you, but no more. Oh, Raleigh, my hero, you make me swoon. Very well. I hereby reject the defense's request. Oh. And order the witnesses in the stand to testify again. State forthwith before the court any details pertaining to the defense's alternative explanation of events. Yes, sir. Alright, Constable Beats reports. This case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb. Believe me, a London bobby is good for his word. You see, sir, the windows on the top floor of the Garadeb house are top-hinged casements. Obviously, if anything had been thrown out of the window, we would have seen it. I did leave the scene to go and fetch help, but my trusty Raleigh was there to make sure nothing was disturbed. I didn't take my eye off the crime scene for one moment, sir. Nothing strange to report on that front, sir. Well, the fact that maybe she went away to go do something, maybe Raleigh, he said he didn't take his eye off the crime scene, but maybe he tampered with it. Well, this is quite startling. Top-hinged casement windows. I don't know what that means. That detail was not in the police report, Constable. Yes, sorry about that. I must have been a little drowsy. You cannot excuse your sins with drowsiness every time, Constable. No, sir. Sorry, but what exactly is a top-hinged casement window? And you cannot excuse your ignorance with such trite remarks, my learned friend. Come on! I was like, literally, he comes from a different country where they don't even have those. You can excuse his ignorance a little bit. Of course, sorry. I found it, Mr. Naruhodo. Cast your mind back to the windows in Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb's room. Alright, I'll try. So the window opens in order to allow air to circulate inside the house. But, as it's a top-hinged casement window, it swings open along the upper edge, you see. I'm glad you've rectified your ignorance. A casement window's most prominent feature is its stay, a metal bar which prevents the window from being opened beyond a certain amount. It prevents it opening? This is all news to me. Absolutely correct, sir. In other words, if a book or knife were to have been thrown through the open window... Oh, it's got a very small... It would have clattered against the pane and fallen straight to the pavement below. No. You see the problem, then. Good. Your education in Windows is complete. There was never any possibility of either the book or the knife traveling 15 yards over the road. That is, unless the window pane had been shattered, something we've discounted already. That can't be! Did you see that, Raleigh? That young Japanese man just collapsed in agony. Oh yes, my darling, I saw it. I saw how he crumbled before me. Oh, Raleigh, you're so strong. How is this happening? I haven't even started the cross-examination yet, and already my argument's been destroyed. Aw, poor Ryunosuke. Counsel, if you could drag yourself upright again, the court awaits your cross-examination. My lord. Oh, good. Another desperate situation.
Hold it!
How can you say that for certain? A very good question, sir. And the answer is this. It has the noble founding principles of the force written on it as a reminder to all us policemen of our sworn duty. He showed us that before, didn't he? Did he? I can't say I remember. Is that in the court record? To patrol the streets of London town and uphold the peace of the common man. It's what the job's all about. And that is why I can stand here today beside my long-suffering wife and tell you a Bobby's good for his word. While rubbing my tired eyes, admittedly. Sir. Oh, Raleigh, you're so manly. Of course I am, my darling Patricia. Oh, Pat. Oh, Raleigh. Oh, brother. No, none of this is what I meant. I meant, how can you say for certain that this case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb? Oh, I see, sir. You should have said so earlier, sir. Yes, well, so could you answer the question? That was a waste of time, then. Absolutely, sir. I will answer to the fullest of my ability, sir. There's a surprising reason why Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb's domestic dispute can't be related to this case. But before I get into that, sir, just one thing. Yes? I'd very much like you and all your countrymen to understand the Great British Institute of Scotland Yard. So I hope you'll take back some tales of us London bobbies and how we uphold our guiding principles. Okay, I'm going to look right now and see if that is actually... It doesn't look like it is. The book. I mean, I doubt there'd be anything in his... Oops. I doubt there'd be anything in his, like, little book about the rules and stuff. That would be something that I could use as evidence, but... I wasn't planning on going back just yet. I've only just arrived here. So, to that end, sir, I'd be happy... Oh, well, here we go. I just got a little bit too eager beaver. So to that end, sir, I'd be happy to lend you my warrant card for your perusal. But I must warn you, you won't be able to get through it without shedding a few tears. Thank you. I'll try. Alright, well now we can check it out and see. But apparently not quite yet. Well, I can go into present. As long as I don't actually hit present. So let's examine. Item 1. A policeman will strive to preserve the peace within his allotted beat. Item 2. A patrolling officer is expected to walk 20 miles around his beat every day for the furtherance of community relations. Item number 1. Any crimes fall under the jurisdiction of the beat in which they are discovered. Item 2. When a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. Okay, I mean, none of that seems out of place. Peace within the beat. Expected to walk 20 miles. I feel like this is gonna... I'm gonna use this for something. Any crimes fall into the jurisdiction of the beat in which they are discovered. Wait, wasn't the thing... Didn't he tell... Okay, that's right, he did. He did say that. That Patricia went to go call the... went to the... What do they call it? The police box? Because it wasn't his jurisdiction, right? So that... I think that is correct. Like, he did say that he wasn't... It wasn't his jurisdiction. But a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. So maybe he didn't do that part? I don't know. He did say that he stood watch over the crime scene, so... Okay, anyway. The windows on the top floor of the house are top-hinged casements.
Hold it!
By which you mean they don't open fully. Is that correct? Yes, sir. They're just there to allow a bit of air through the house, you see. So they're restricted as to how much they open. And therefore, anything thrown out the window from inside the room would simply strike the pane and fall to the street directly below. For clarity, allow me to mark the map. Of course, that's the question of how did the book end up in her hand then? And if it's like Raleigh said, if he and Patricia and Natsume were the only ones in the area, and Natsume like just ran away immediately, then that makes me think that maybe one of them tampered with the crime scene and put the book in the victim's hand, and potentially the knife in the back, but why? Here's the location where objects would have fallen. Yes. Directly opposite the scene of the crime, on the other side of the rather wide road. Would it have been so hard for somebody to mention this top-hinged casement thing before? Well, I have another question for you, Constable. And what would that be, sir? How do you even know? Why would you have any idea what sort of windows Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb's house is furnished with? Ah, well, sir, that's very simple. You see, I helped with the investigation yesterday. Oh, okay.
Excuse me.
Do you have something to add, Mrs. Beat? Maybe she did something too. Maybe she's like, I wanted to help the police, so I did some stuff, and maybe she fucked things up. I don't know. Sorry. You look, well, delighted. Is there some particular reason for that? Oh, I was just remembering, that's all. We really were so lucky. Lucky? What do you mean? Well, of course, I feel terrible for the poor woman who was attacked. Don't misunderstand me, please. But we were just so lucky it didn't happen on Raleigh's beat. It was so close, you see. Oh, I hadn't realized. Oh, yes, that street, Briar Road. That's the boundary between Raleigh's beat and the next one. Isn't that right, my love? Interesting. Constable Beat. Oh, yes, that's right. That's the reason I was helping out with interviewing the occupants of the Garadeb household yesterday. Their house is on my beat, you see, sir. That really was cutting it close then. That makes me think maybe the body was moved? I don't know. I don't know why. Maybe they moved the body so that, like, he wouldn't be stuck there doing the investigating because they were, like, on their way to dinner and they didn't want to be caught up in that case if it was on his beat or in his jurisdiction. Constable, I wonder if you could clarify something. If the Garadeb household is on your beat, does that mean that the pavement next to it is as well? Oh! Outside Mr. Garadeb's house. Maybe... I was like, maybe the body got moved across the street, and that way Raleigh could be like, if it's literally the difference between one side of the street and the other side of the street, maybe he dragged the body over to be like, not my problem. And in that case, if the items would fall directly from the window, maybe the woman got attacked there. Maybe she got hit with the knife, and then got the body dragged across the street. I don't know. This whole thing about the jurisdiction thing, this seems like we're putting a lot of emphasis on this for some reason. Yes, ma'am. The pavement on that side of the road is part of my beat. I think I might be onto something here. I see. I was unaware of that. Just think, if the woman had been attacked just on the other side of Briar Road, see, they keep bringing it up. We would never have been able to go for that meal to celebrate our wedding anniversary. Oh, Raleigh, did you literally tamper with the scene of the crime? Just so that you could go out to dinner. But that's the life of a bobby, after all. Extraordinary people are bobbies, tirelessly working for the benefit of all Londoners. Do you know what I think? I think it was the good Lord's way of rewarding my Raleigh for all his hard work. Don't you think so, my darling? Did he do that because he didn't want it? But then she would know that too. Like, she was there. That must be it, Pat, my love. That must be it. I think perhaps we should make sure we have that information officially on record. Leave it to me, Mr. Naruhodo. I'll take care of it immediately. And now it's my turn, I think. Alright, obviously if anything had been thrown out the window, we would have seen it. But according to my notes here, the sun had gone down already and it was dark. Maybe that was like they worked together where like that happened in front of them and they're like, oh no, we were about to go to dinner. And then maybe Raleigh was like, okay, let's put her across the street. You go and get the police that's in that jurisdiction. I'll stand watch and we'll like corroborate that story and then we don't have to worry about it. But I don't think they had anything to do with the murder. I think they might have just tampered with the scene of the crime. But then that's the case, like, who is the actual murderer? Oh, but Rolly and I were strolling along, gazing at the night sky and looking for our lucky star. Sorry? The star that will guide us to eternal happiness. Can't it guide you to answer the question? If a flaming book had cut across the sky in front of us, it would have lit up like a shooting star. And if I'd seen a shooting star, I would have made a wish upon it. Let Rolly be an inspector, I would have said. 3 times at least. Of course, what with the smog and everything, we couldn't actually see any stars. In short, are you trying to say that neither a book nor a knife crossed the sky before you? Yes, sir, that is correct, sir. As sure as the night sky in London is starless, sir. It certainly seems like they're telling the truth. And then we saw the poor woman fall to the ground, so we ran straight over to help her. Alright, I did leave the scene to go and fetch help, but my Raleigh was there to make sure nothing was disturbed. This I want to get into more detail about as well. Yes, you said that you went to a nearby police box to fetch another officer. Is that right? That's right, yes. If it had been on Raleigh's beat, I would have known exactly where I was going, of course. Don't feel bad, my love. You can't be expected to know the location of every police box on every beat. So Raleigh told me the way. Only, I sort of got a little bit lost on the way. Patricia, my darling, that's why I love you. Your terrible sense of direction is bewitching to me. I wish my husband felt the same way about my terrible sense of direction. Oh, please. So, I suppose I was gone for about 15 minutes. But, like I said, my Raleigh was at the scene the whole time, making sure nothing was disturbed. I was off duty at the time, of course, but a true Bobby is never really off duty, sir. And if this is the case, I wouldn't put it past Patricia to be the one, because she seems to kind of be the boss, the one wearing the pants, as it were. I wouldn't be surprised if she was like, no, we are not putting off our anniversary dinner. We are going to move this over across the street, and we are going to pretend that, you know, that didn't happen. I didn't take my eye off the crime scene for a moment. Nothing strange to report. Nothing to report. That's correct, sir. I had my eyes wide open the entire time, never looked away for a second. No one else approached the scene, and nothing was removed from it. But also, Raleigh tends to fall asleep a lot, so I wouldn't be surprised if he fell asleep standing up and maybe somebody tampered with the body. I don't know. There's like a million ideas I have in my head of like what could have happened. I can swear to that on the yard's honor, sir. Really? That seems a little strange. Beg your pardon, sir? Strange, sir? Seems altogether regular to me. This burnt copy of the Lion's Pride was originally in the Garadeb household. So the question remains, how did it find its way into the hands of the victim? Can you shed any light on that, seeing as you were at the scene of the crime the entire time? Aha! Could it be a different copy, so? One that just happened to be burnt as well? Even if that were possible, why would the victim have been gripping a book like that in her hand? As you can see from the photographic print, she had a bag over her shoulder. Well, sir, that book was in the lady's hand from the moment we arrived at the scene. Is that so? There's something about this statement that's not sitting right with me. The two mysteries of how that knife ended up in her back and how that book ended up in her hand. There must be some common thread between them. Can I ask you something? Please, Mr. Lawyer, sir. Oh, yes, of course. What is it? You're doubting us, aren't you? I can tell. What? I wasn't really, what's she doing? Please, just because I'm a woman, it doesn't make my testimony any less valuable. You might just see me as the wife of a policeman, but I'm a woman of my word, I am. I really don't remember ever suggesting I doubted you. No excuses. I don't want to hear it. My voice will be heard. My lord, you'll let me speak, won't you? Yes, Mrs. Beat. I will allow you to supplement your testimony if you do so. I just realized, I was like, is it beat because he's like a beat cop? Is that the pun? Sometimes the path of least resistance is the sage one. That was a very loud mutter. I heard that. That Japanese man thinks a policeman's wife's word counts for nothing, does he? Well, watch out, sir. I might let you get away with something like that, but my Raleigh won't. Duly noted, Mrs. Beat. Please, I humbly ask you to continue. What could she possibly be about to say, I wonder?
Hold it!
Alright, Mrs. Beat, nobody's questioning what you've told us. I saw it, I did, that evening. I saw it clearly. That little Eastern man with the whiskers and the funny curved back slinking away from the scene. And I know what I didn't see as well. I didn't see any flaming books or knives flying through the sky. All very clear. You also mentioned something about having a poor sense of direction. Oh, yes, well, that's a little embarrassing, really. I'm always ending up at the wrong place when I've made arrangements to meet Rolly. He gets ever so cross. Oh!
Excuse me.
Constable Beat, is there a problem? No, sir, no problem, sir. Did your wife's remark just now bring something to mind, perhaps? Oh, well, in a way, sir. Oh, were they on the opposite side? Were they on his beat? Like, were they on the... Okay. Oh, I would think that Raleigh would know which side of the street he was on. I was just remembering the same thing happened that evening is all. Oh! You mean Mrs. Beat lost her way on the night of the incident? Well, you see, I sent her off to find a police box in the next beat over from mine. But she was gone a fair bit longer than what I was expecting. I thought she'd be back inside 10 minutes, but my darling was gone a good 15. Oh, Raleigh, you're such a tease. But the reason I was so long was because of the bouquet, silly. The bouquet? Sorry, what bouquet are you talking about? Oh, it was a present for our wedding anniversary. Raleigh's so romantic. He saved up for it with farthings and halfpennies he found in the gutter while doing his rounds. Yes, how romantic. I'd forgotten all about it until just now. Had you, my darling? Yes. But that was just between us. Oh, no talking about it to anyone else, darling. You have to promise. Really? Oh. Well, hold on. What was that all about? Constable Beat looked very obviously troubled during that exchange. I'm afraid I can't offer any useful insight, Mr. Naruhodo. But I'm quite sure of one thing. We have to ask Mrs. Beat about the bouquet. Mrs. Beat, this bouquet you just mentioned. I'd like you to add details about it to your testimony, please. Oh, really? Yes, I'd love to. He's been very quiet this trial so far, at least this part of it, the second half. What happened was I dropped my bouquet and ended up losing my way for a while.
Hold it!
You mean you dropped the bouquet at the scene of the crime? Yes, that's right. Oh, I was so upset. When we ran over and I saw it was a woman with a knife in her back, I was so shocked I dropped the bouquet Raleigh gave me. And that wasn't at the scene of the crime, so it's obviously been tampered with. It was in a dark spot where the streetlights weren't casting any light, so I didn't notice it first. And then, you went to the police box to report it to the policeman whose beat it was on. Yes, and I came back to the scene together with the other constable, you see. That's when I spotted my bouquet again, but the funny thing was, when I went to pick it up, It was nowhere near the victim's body at all. In case you need reminding, Mrs. Beat, the victim is not deceased. I was all flustered for a moment before I heard a voice calling me from the other side of the road. Your husband, presumably. Oh! Wait a minute, the other side of the road, and her bouquet. The body was moved. The body was moved! Rolly did! He moved the. Oh, he moved the body because he knew that she had a bad sense of direction. She wouldn't notice. Right? She wouldn't notice it was in a different spot. Oh my gosh, so maybe Patricia had nothing to do with moving the body. It was all Rolly's idea. That's right. Silly me. I'd gone over to the wrong side of the street. Is my reasoning right on that one? Although I'm going to blame the bouquet this time. I can't really think how it got there. I really can't. And that's why Rolly told her, hey, don't say anything about it. So the bouquet somehow moved from one side of Briar Road to the opposite. It wasn't the bouquet that moved. It was the body. Curious indeed. Isn't it? But the worst of it is, I forgot to pick up the bouquet up again when we left the scene. That beautiful rose Rolly bought me, with that change in the gutter he spent so long collecting. Van Zeeks knows what's up. He knows. By bouquet, do you perhaps mean this sorry, solitary rose? Oh, yes, that's it. That's the bouquet Rolly brought me for our anniversary, with old bits of change he found in the gutter. Maybe just call it a rose. Tell us, Lord Van Zeeks, where did you come by the flower? According to the report by the police officer in charge of the crime scene investigation, it was found on the edge of the pavement in front of the Garadeb household. Yes! My theory may be correct, in front of the Garadeb's house. Although it wasn't noticed until the morning, as it lay where the street lamps cast no light. It was believed to be of no relevance to the case, since it was found on the opposite side of the thoroughfare. Oh, thank you, sir, thank you. Could I have it back now, please? No, I think for good measure this rose should be added to the court record as evidence. Oh. Yeah, it caused her to drop the rose where she stood. The body was by the Garadeb, so it did. The things dropped and maybe the knife just stabbed the woman in the back and then she fell over. I can't believe it. And then maybe Raleigh didn't know, like, the book. Maybe he was trying to pin it on the Garadebs, or maybe he just didn't know, so he put the book in the woman's hand because he didn't remember, what the crime scene looked like. But it's a symbol of our love. I want it back after the trial, do you hear me? I want it back. Good grief. Rest assured I shall do my very best not to forget, Mrs. Beat. Okay, so we're back to, this is all testimony that I've already done. So let's go through again. Oh, that was stuff that was added beforehand. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, what do you make of all this? Yes. The whole idea of an invisible attacker has been troubling me all along. But I believe I'm starting to get a picture of what really happened here now. The fourth book that had no business being at the scene of the crime made me sure Mrs. Garadeb was hiding something from us. But it's becoming increasingly clear that someone else has been hiding something from us as well. I think I may already be armed with everything I need to strike a decisive blow here. Sweet. This time, it's going to expose the whole truth about this mysterious affair. Okay, so there's that one. If anything had been thrown out the window, we would have seen it. Oh, well, let's take a look. So, we've got the warrant card, we've got the anniversary bouquet. Shock of seeing stuff caused Mrs. B to drop the rose where she stood. That has got to be, I'm guessing that's the thing I got to present. It's just a matter of where. Dropped my bouquet and ended up losing my way for a while. I didn't take my eye off the crime scene for one moment. Nothing strange to report on that front. Ooh. Could that be it? I'm gonna try presenting the rose here, because it's strange the fact that the bouquet wasn't there, or the fact that he didn't mention it. I'm gonna try this and see if that's right.
Objection.
Whew, okay, I think I got it. Yes? Alright. You claim, Constable Beat, there was nothing to report in the 15 or so minutes you were guarding the scene. But that cannot be. Oh, I'm gonna nail him for this? Not so honorable after all. And does Patricia know, or did he hide it from her? At first I thought she was the one who, put the plan to action, but now I'm starting to think he hid it from her. What do you mean to say? In your testimony just now, Mrs. Beat, you explained to the court that when you arrived back at the scene of the crime with the policeman assigned to that beat, the bouquet you had dropped at the victim's side was no longer anywhere nearby.
Objection!
Yes, on the opposite side of Briar Road to where the victim was attacked. But considering the size of that meager bouquet, if a single sorry bloom can be so described, no doubt it was blown in the wind across the street, back into the gutter where it belongs. Damn, that's harsh. Meeker?
Objection!
But if that were the case, why did Constable Beat not testify to the fact? No one else approached the scene, and nothing was removed from it. Constable Beat swore to that on Scotland Yard's honor. But the bouquet belonged to me. It has nothing to do with the case. That's why Raleigh didn't mention it, I'm sure. Oh no, she's gonna be so mad when she finds out he was lying. No, because sadly, it's not only your bouquet we're talking about here. More than one thing in this case is mysteriously the wrong way round. What are you talking about? Think about it. Besides Mrs. Beat's bouquet, there's Mr. Garadeb's book. Mr. Garadeb's copy of The Lion's Pride, which was thrown out the window by his wife, would have struck the pane of the casement window and landed here on the west side of the street. And yet, it was actually found here on the opposite side of the road in the victim's hand. Meanwhile, according to the testimony we've heard, Mrs. Beat's bouquet should have been dropped here at the scene of the crime on the east side of the street. But in fact, it was actually found here on the opposite side of the road in front of Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb's house. There's no logical explanation for those things, unless somebody deliberately moved them. What are you trying to say? The way you're talking, it sounds like you think my Raleigh's done something wrong. Don't you dare listen to a word that scrawny lawyer says. Oh, withering on about books and bouquets. Why should we care? It's nitpicking, that's what it is. She should not be allowed on the jury. Oh, good. Mrs. Garadeb's come around. Let's put her on the stand. Or let's put her husband on the stand. You might call it nitpicking, Mrs. Garadeb. But deliberately meddling with the scene of a crime is a criminal offense. It's called, tampering, Mr. Naruhodo. But the person responsible for this tampering cannot admit to it, for a very subtle but compelling reason.
Objection!
Tampering. You've barely heard the term before. Tell us, my learned friend. Who would possibly have had cause to carry out such an elaborate deception? Oh, I know exactly who. Yes, there is someone who tampered with the scene of the crime that evening. All the evidence and all the testimony points to that one particular person. Counsel, I must demand you substantiate this conjecture. Who are you saying is responsible for tampering with the scene of the crime?
Take that!
Obviously, there's only one person it could have been. Constable Raleigh Beat, it was you. What? A policeman? A member of Scotland Yard? What nonsense! Why would my Raleigh do something like that? There's no one straighter than my husband. No Bobby works more tirelessly for the people of London. Mrs. Beat, you said it in your testimony. Your husband asked you to go to a nearby police box to fetch the officer on duty. The 15 minutes you were absent from the scene is the only opportunity anyone had to tamper with it. You're making it up. It's nonsense. It's lies. What about that Japanese man with the whiskers? I bet it was him. He did it.
Objection!
If that was true, Constable Beat would have seen him do it. Oh. And forgive me for pointing it out, but when you dropped your bouquet, Mrs. Beat, it was after the defendant had fled the scene. Well,
Objection!
first you make accusations about the landlord and his wife, and now you incriminate a policeman as well. But your accusations lack one very important thing. Evidence, I'm guessing? You claim the crime scene was tampered with. But there is only one reason anyone would commit such a reckless crime: to hide something. That's right, he's right. But my husband and I just happened to be there, that's all. So why would we have anything to hide? It doesn't make sense. You've offered no motive for this alleged tampering. I know why. It's because he didn't want to deal with it. He didn't want to have to go back to work. And until you do, your accusations are nothing but empty threats. Constable B had a very good reason for wanting to tamper with the scene of the crime. That's the key to this entire affair. Mr. Naruhodo, have you managed to solve this mystery? Counsel, you have made a very serious accusation against a London police officer. If you are mistaken, I'm sure I need not point out your reputation as a lawyer will be irrevocably damaged. With that stark warning in mind, you will now explain to the court the motive for this alleged tampering. Yes, my lord. Constable Beat's motive for tampering with the crime scene was to hide where the victim fell. Where the victim fell to the ground. That is what this Bobby had to cover up at all costs. What? Where the victim fell? You mean where she was attacked? What are you talking about? We told you at the very start, didn't we? On the pavement at Briar Road. We saw it happen, remember? It was right here, as if anyone didn't already know. That's certainly what everybody has been led to believe. But in fact, that isn't where the victim was stabbed at all. What? What? I'm beginning to wonder where this tumultuous trial will end, Counsel. If that's your assertion, then the court is dying to know, my Nipponese friend. Where are you proposing the crime actually took place that evening? But that's on the opposite side of the road. I don't understand. On the evening in question, Mr. Garadeb's book fell directly down from the open window above, and your bouquet, Mrs. Beat, never moved at all. What did move was the scene of the crime itself. Good gracious. Well, damn, this took quite the turn. Perhaps you haven't been listening to the ample testimony the court has heard. But these witnesses both saw the moment the attack took place. That's right, I saw it with my own eyes. It was 5 o'clock in the evening and already dark. There was the typical London fog on the ground. When you saw the incident unfold and ran to the victim's aid. That was actually on the west side of Briar Road. No, that's not true. It can't have been. Constable Beat then arranged for you to be absent for a while by sending you for help. And during the 15 minutes you were away, he transplanted the crime scene. He moved all the things shown in this print, the victim herself, the 4 books. He moved everything, in fact, to the pavement on the east side of Briar Road. Extraordinary. But the constable overlooked one thing. What? What did he overlook? The bouquet, I presume. Exactly. The prosecution told the court just a few minutes ago about the discovery of the rose bouquet. Lord Van Zeek said it wasn't noticed until the morning, as it lay where the street lamps cast no light. Yes, it couldn't be seen in the dark, obviously. Which is why it was the bouquet that was found in its original position, on the pavement on the west side of Briar Road. And that is the defense's theory about what really happened that evening. How do you respond? Constable Raleigh Beat. Oh, is he gonna go into, like, super awake and scary mode? He's going to his final form. Or not. Well, I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to nod off again, but I haven't slept properly in a month. Did I miss anything important? Oh, Raleigh. It isn't true, is it? What that lawyer said is all lies, isn't it? I know it is, because you're the most upstanding, righteous man I know. I had a dream, a terrible dream. All the things I did that night. Everything come out. Everything exposed. Only, it seems, it wasn't a dream at all. Good golly! Order, order, order! What on earth is the meaning of all this? Oh, Raleigh, why? Why would you do something like this? Moving a corpse is a criminal offense, isn't it? He did it for his wife. Wishing the victim dead should be one too. Constable, explain yourself. Why would you do this? As a respected member of Scotland Yard, your duty is to protect the good people of London Town. I can't say, sir. What? I really am ever so sorry about all this. For damaging the Yard's reputation. For everything. I have a possible explanation. For why, on that particular evening, Constable Beat felt compelled to move the scene of the crime. I can think of one reason. What? How could you possibly know? You, a foreigner, presuming to understand the mind of a Scotland Yard policeman? And yet, Lord Van Zeeks, it is this foreigner who has uncovered the startling truth of the matter thus far. Thank you, Judge. I believe it would be beneficial to the court to hear this extraordinary young lawyer's theory. Ooh, extraordinary. Thank you, Judge. Counsel for the defense, if you please. Yes, my lord. Now then, I think you would better show us some evidence. At once, my lord. England, Japan, it makes no difference where you come from. Human emotions are the same. And I think I have a fairly good idea of the feelings behind this man's actions. What gives away the motive for Constable Beat's unthinkable actions? Okay. Can I change it to people? Can I choose the wife? Is the wife the reason why? There's no option. Okay, so it's got to be an item then, I guess. So in that case, it's gonna be the warrant card, right? Because that says the thing about like your jurisdiction you are responsible for. But I was gonna choose the wife's profile for the thing. But okay, let's hope this is right. Okay. I realize that I'm a foreigner in this land, and I have only just arrived from Japan, which is why all this information about London's so-called bobbies is completely new to me. I've learned that, though honorable, patrolling the beat is the most demanding work in the world, for example. Keeping the peace, looking after the citizens on his beat in all kinds of ways. There's no doubt that the young Bobby is charged with a great deal to do every day, certainly. But for Constable Beat, the day in question was special. Special? How? On account of this bouquet, my lord. Oh, yes. It was our very first wedding anniversary. Constable Beat had worked so hard to be able to afford this simple gift for his wife, and was so looking forward to taking her out for a celebratory meal, when he and Mrs. Beat stumbled upon a crime along Briar Road. When he saw that shadowy figure through the fog, collapsed on the pavement ahead of him, what must have gone through the man's mind? But, sir, just on that particular day I was looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. Mrs. Beat put up with a lot being married to a bobby like me. I wanted to show my dear wife how much I cared. This is the warrant card that Constable Beat offered to lend me earlier. Inside, among the rules for patrolling policemen, it says, he's like, I really wish I hadn't given that to the lawyer. When a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. Ah. Constable Beat. Is that, or is that not the reason why you moved the whole scene of the crime that day? Yes. Everything you said, it's all right. So, that's it. It was all to do with the boundary of your beat. Oh. Exactly. To summarize, The incident actually occurred on Constable Beat's beat. Good gracious. Constable, do you realize the gravity of what you've done? Oh, I feel kind of bad for him. Like, I know what he did is a terrible thing, but I'm like, he's probably going to lose his job, and it looks like they're already not making a lot of money. It was the first time since I became a copper that I'd ever cursed God. Stay close to me, Pat. The criminal could still be lurking somewhere. As we ran over to the scene, I had every intention of doing my duty as a police officer. We've got to report this to the station as quickly as possible. But then it dawned on me. I realized where we were, where the victim was lying, and what that meant for me. When a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. Why here? Why did this have to happen here? And why tonight, of all nights? Why? Oh, that's got me feeling kind of bad for him, actually. It's a copper's job to guard the scene of the crime, so I told Pat she'd have to go to the nearest police box and fetch whoever was on duty there. It was then, when I opened my mouth to speak, it just came out. I couldn't believe the words that were coming out of my own mouth. This is the next beat to mine, Pat, so you'll have to go to the police box that covers it. Turn right along Mearsham Street, and then... Oh, Susato is like, she's fully taken in by it. I am a little bit too. Oh. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, Constable. I just wanted, just that one night, to take my Patricia out for dinner. Oh, Raleigh. Just that one night. You knew that if the incident was on your beat, your evening of celebration would be ruined, and so you decided to move the entire crime scene outside your jurisdiction, just across the street to the east pavement of Briar Road, which falls under the neighboring beat's care. You see, I thought, well, I was sure the victim was dead, you see. I beg your pardon? Oh, of course he did. Otherwise, my Raleigh would have never left the poor woman on the freezing cold pavement. I see your meaning now. But God got me back for my sins, didn't he? That's why. That's why I missed the rose I bought for Pat. Oh no, Raleigh, that was all my fault. I should never have dropped it in such a dark place. I'm so sorry, Raleigh. And can you tell us, Constable, how many books did you move from the one side of the road to the other in total? Oh, 4 it was. Yes, sir, definitely. 4. 3 of them dropped by Mr. Natsume, and the 4th being the one that fell from the window upstairs in the Garadeb household, of course. But what made you place the book in the victim's hand? When all the others were scattered haphazardly around, I mean. Oh, well, sir, that's because that's how I found it. Oh! How you found it? Oh! What do you mean? When we first ran over to the scene, the victim was already holding the book. So when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. Okay, well now we've got a whole other bunch of questions. You're sure it was this book, The Lion's Pride, that the victim was holding? Oh, yes, sir. No doubt about it, sir. Interesting. I thought it was an open and shut case at the time, you see. There were only the 2 people at the scene, and Pat and me both saw it happen. However, which way you look at it, it had to be the fellow who ran off who done it, I thought. I couldn't see the harm, really. I didn't think moving it all over the road would make a jot of difference. I suppose this is it for me now. I've had it. My lord. Yes, Lord Van Zeeks. I believe that concludes the cross-examination of the witnesses. Oh, you just trying to move things along, aren't you, Constable? You may withdraw. Yes, sir. Mr. Prosecutor, sir. What will become of Murray Raleigh? What will happen to him? For now, you are free to go home. The police will contact you in due course. Please, don't punish my husband. This was all my fault. It's because I'm always moaning at him for coming home late. I thought these two were so goofy, but this is like so tragic actually. Leave it now, Pat. Let's go home. I'm tired. All right then, my love. One last thing, Constable. So? Let this be a lesson to you. In a criminal investigation, every detail matters, however insignificant it may seem to you. Yes, sir. Carve that lesson into your mind. And never again make the mistake of tampering with the scene of a crime. Never again, sir? You mean to say... Leave, now. This trial is not yet over. Oh, that's... Oh, I was hoping, I was like, I know it's a terrible thing to do, but I was like, please don't lose his job. Sir. Well, quite a startling revelation, I must say. Whoever thought of the third party transplanting the entire scene of a crime like that? Indeed, my lord. Nevertheless, there are some immutable facts here. Principally, that the accused, Mr. Soseki Natsume, is the only person who could have possibly committed this crime.
Objection.
No, I disagree. Now that we know the true scene of the incident, there is someone else. Oh! Another person who could be responsible for the knife in the victim's back. Forgive me for being presumptuous, but I believe the prosecution is probably well aware of this possibility already. Lord Van Zeeks, is this true? Here's Lord Van Zeeks being like, every detail matters in an investigation, but I'm gonna, like, I know his job as a prosecutor is to, like, get a conviction, but he's like, but let me try and, like, cover things up by not giving the defense a chance to speak and reveal these details. I love Susato calling him out. Very well. Name the person if you will, and if further investigation is warranted. The prosecution has no objection to the trial continuing. You will name this other person who could have purposed her this is crazy to think that this could have been another accidental thing like with Kazuma dying.
Take that.
The defense would once again like to request the cross-examination of a new witness, my lord. Finally, we're putting her to the stand. Once again? And her husband while we're at it, please. My assistant made the same request earlier. In order to finally reveal the truth about this case, it's imperative we cross-examine juror number 4, Mrs. Joan Garadeb. Me? Me? Oh, dearie me. I can't believe that that actor might not even come to play about this at all.
Objection.
I thought for sure he was going to be, like, the person behind everything. That request has already been denied. But the situation is very different now. Mrs. Garadeb, answer me this. What do you want now, you little toad? At the time of the incident, you were engaged in a violent argument with your husband, Mr. John Garadeb. In the course of the argument, a minor house fire was ignited. And to clear the smoke from the room, your husband opened a window that looks out over Briar Road. Well, what of it? You threw this book at your husband when he was cornered with his back against the window. Upon striking the pane of the open-top hinged casement window, the book plummeted directly down. Finding its way to what we now know to be the true scene of the incident. Maybe what happened was the book fell, the woman bent down to pick up the book, and then the knife fell out and struck her in the back while she was bent over. Yes, and as I said, it's still hard for me to believe that if someone is stabbed that they wouldn't release a book from their hand, so maybe further tampering was done. But I don't know how that would be possible because, like they said, they didn't see anybody but Mr. Natsume at the crime. During the argument, you were beside yourself with rage. As such, you threw not just books, but anything you could lay your hands on. So, let me ask you one more time, Mrs. Garadeb. This knife, the one removed from the victim's back. Have you really never laid eyes upon it before? This is crazy, to think that this was just another accident. I don't recall it. Seriously? Am I supposed to remember everything I picked up and threw at my husband? And anyway, the man over there and all that regalia said, members of the jury needn't testify, didn't he? Well, fine, let's get your husband on the stand then. Conveniently, yes.
Objection.
No, I have no recollection of saying that at all. Oh, so he's agreeing to me. Oh. I have no recollection of saying that at all, juror number 4. Oh. Make no mistake. You jurors are not special in any way. You are not immune to the judicial process. If you know something about this knife, madam, let the truth come out. Well, good on him for finally, wanting to know the truth. But that's just a commoner garden knife. It could have come from anywhere. We have several like that at home. If one went missing, how would you expect me to know? What's that? Are you joking? What are you saying? Please, Mrs. Garadeb. Now you listen to me. I refuse to believe all this nonsense. I couldn't bear the thought that I'd injured someone. Do you hear? I couldn't bear it. Oh, the poor woman. So, yes, I want evidence. I want to see hard evidence if you're going to insist on that being my fault. You're going to have to prove to me I threw the knife if that's what you think. Oh no, okay. Come on now. Come along now, chop chop, do your worst. Maybe I have to investigate the knife. Let me check out the knife really quick, actually, and see maybe if there's some sort of, inscription on it. Can I open it up? It doesn't look like there's anything, no markings or anything that I can see. I was hoping maybe if I'd open this up, maybe there would be a, J.G., Joan or John Garadeb. Okay, so nothing really. So the knife itself doesn't seem to have any evidence to that it's gotta be hers. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, if I had evidence like that, believe me, I would have thrown it at her already. Then take the stand, juror. Oh, nice. Oh, haha. The prosecution does not object to the defense's request to cross-examine this woman. Thank you, Lord Van Zeeks. I'm going to have to testify? Juror number 4, as I'm sure you will appreciate, having observed it with your own eyes today. Witness testimony can lead to the most extraordinary truths being unearthed. Truths of which the witnesses themselves may not even have been aware. She's like, oh, that's what I was afraid of. Oh, dearie me. So, I demand your full and unaltered testimony, Mrs. Garadeb. And mark my words, in this court of law today, we shall extract the truth. Do you concur, counsels? Certainly, my lord. Oh, that's what I was hoping for, my lord. This is such a strange feeling. For the first time since arriving in this country, it actually feels real. I'm here, in the Old Bailey, and I am a lawyer. Witness, state your name and occupation. Oh, yes, my name is Joan Garadeb, and I'm, well, I'm a juror, and such like. It sounds like even she doesn't know if she's a housewife or a maid, or what anymore. The court has decided your testimony is required in order to clarify matters in this case. Do you understand, madam? Yes, my lord. You will tell the court everything that took place in your household on the evening in question. And I warn you, do not attempt to hide the truth. Oh, dearie me. Chin up, Joni. Nothing to worry about now. Oh my gosh, he's here. Oh, we're gonna get to... Let's get them both on the stand. I didn't know you were here, John. Wasn't only you in the room that day, old thing, was it? Rather think I ought to testify as well, don't you? But, well, what about your knee, dear? Don't you worry about that. Hardly notice it. I'm not the sort of chap to leave a comrade to face disciplinary action alone. Oh, John. I presume you are Mr. John Garadeb. Yes, sir. Former second lieutenant of the 3rd Regiment of the 4th Northumberland Fusiliers, sir. I probably said all of that wrong. Seen my fair share of action and now living the quiet life, as it were. The quiet life? Were you not engaged in an incendiary battle with your spouse on the day in question? Well, yes, quite. I believe this may represent a first in the proud history of the British court. Calling a juror to the witness stand is unprecedented. However, the court will hear your testimony now, juror number 4, and that of your husband. You will recount clearly and concisely the events in your home at the time of the incident in question. Sir, at once. Yes, on the day you're referring to, the wife and I did have a bit of a skirmish. Can't recall the reason now. Knocked a candlestick over and set fire to the carpet. Soon had it out, though, and got the window open. Meanwhile, I was picking up whatever I could find to throw at him. Plenty of knives around our place. Can't say I'd notice if 1 or 2 went missing, I'm afraid. If that bally thing on the victim's back really was one of ours, you'd have a job proving it, I think. Well, okay. Very cocky, he's just like, I dare you. It sounds as though it was quite the battlefield in your household that evening. Although, an entirely one-sided assault, it seems. The enemy caught us on the hop, sir. Had no choice but to dig in and take defensive measures. To be honest, if the enemy had kept shelling us for another minute, we'd have been toast. Of course, a veteran such as myself is only too aware that on every battlefield, you're just a gnat's whisker from death at any moment. Are we still talking about a marital quarrel here? Well, I must say I'm dubious that this testimony will shed any light on the origins of this jackknife. In combat, one's focus narrows, such that surroundings are barely noticed. These witnesses may not be able to offer anything more than they have testified already. This may be a dead end. Van Zieks may well be right. Well, whatever the chances, we only have this last cross-examination to uncover the truth, Mr. Naruhodo. Okay, this is the last one. We're almost done. Yes, I'm afraid so. So I'm guessing there's going to be no last-minute heel turn of a random person, like the person I thought might be behind it, to pop up. So I'm guessing that it's one of them, that they did it. And that's kind of sad if that's the case, because that means it was a complete accident. I don't like the ones where they're accidents. It doesn't make me feel very happy about it, because I feel kind of bad for just everything. I don't feel like as accomplished, like, oh, I got a bad person who's intentionally killed someone and is really cocky about, like, the first woman, the first trial.
Hold it!
The reason is what you told us yesterday, I believe. Yes, that's right. If I remember correctly, it all started because of a note that was tucked into one of the pages of a book belonging to Mr. Garadeb. A rather passionate note, in fact. But Mrs. Garadeb found the note, discovering her husband's little secret. And she gave him a mighty number of slaps across the face for it, too. What a sordid state of affairs. Hell on earth. I say, when a chap says he can't recall such things, it's common decency not to drag it up. And besides, half of it was wide of the mark anyway. Oh, it would be funny if she took that tea and just threw it in his face. A likely story. These waters run very deep. And what transpired next after these multiple blows to the face? Alright, knocked a candlestick over and set fire to the carpet and got the window open. And the fire also spread to some items of furniture, didn't it? The bookcase, my armchair, anything of mine, really. Just so happens there was some bathwater around that evening, so I sloshed that about to put it out. A most precarious situation you put yourself in. Ours is a 3-story townhouse on the west side of the street, where the water main isn't connected yet. Have to draw water from a public water pump during the day if you need any, you see. The lodgers are always moaning they can't get any water at night. Although, that little mustached Japanese man buys water in bottles, I believe. The defendant, Mr. Natsume, you mean? Yes, he receives a stipend for his studies, you know, from his home country. Can you imagine being able to brew a pot of tea at all hours? He's obviously very well off. Have you actually seen the state of the man? I believe he uses all his income to buy books. Well, anyway, the point is, I was able to douse the fire with water, fortunately enough. Alright, meanwhile I was picking up whatever I could find to throw at him.
Hold it!
Even though the room was on fire. As far as I was concerned at the time, it was more important to extinguish my anger than the flames. When a woman wants to throw, she must throw. That is most certainly not true of a Susato takedown, Mr. Naruhodo. How did she know I was thinking that? So, please cast your mind back and try to remember. Was a knife among the items you threw at your husband that day? In all honesty, I don't recall, but I feel I must point out I'm no monster. Let me see. Some bread, a cabbage, garlic, a towel, and a sponge. Oh! Oh, that scared me! A sponge, a napkin. Okay.
Excuse me.
Do you have something to add, sir? Mr. Garadeb. Don't shoot. Sorry, I beg your pardon? Did your wife's remark just now bring something to mind? Nothing of any significance, no. Just that the barrage of projectiles the old thing launched in my direction was somewhat more solid than she implies. Books, bricks, and the fire poker I seem to recall. Ouch. And the woman's aim is uncanny. She landed a direct hit with every volley. Ah! Good grief, woman. We're not at home now. This is a court of law. Oh, dearie me. Ever so sorry, dear. What's she even doing with a teapot in here? She's British. She's gotta always have tea. Honestly, John, I'd never have thrown such things at you, obviously. Well, take a look at this, then. How do you suppose that happened, Your pipe, sir. Had this thing in my hand as usual at the time of the onslaught. Knocked it clean out with one of her soft projectiles, she did, yes. And when I went to pick up the thing, it was broken in two. I'd like to see a sponge do that sort of damage. I see, your pipe was broken. It would never have been sent flying unless it was hit by something pretty solid. Anyway, I've managed to bandage the thing up for now. You are one to exaggerate, aren't you, dear? I wonder what we should make of this account. Of course we're gonna say it's important. The defense believes Mr. Garadeb's remarks just now to be of great significance.
Objection.
This war veteran's words only tell us one thing. Betray a fiery wife, and pipes, as well as hearts, may be broken. Sentimental wisdom, perhaps, but hardly worthy of adding to the formal testimony. Indeed, common sense, one might say. Might one? In that case, would you at least permit us to examine the pipe, sir? Oh. Well, I don't see why not. Oh, dearie me. There you go again, trying to integrate yourself with a young lady. Very well. The court will accept the gentleman's pipe as evidence. I hope I didn't speak out of turn, Mr. Naruhodo. I was just feeling rather disappointed for you that your request was turned down. Oh no, it's fine. Thanks to Susato-san, we have some new evidence to work with. We should examine it carefully. Well, thank you for that rebuttal, Mr. Garadeb. Now, if we could return to the crux of the matter. Hold on, before we do that. Let's check out this pipe. Okay, so it's got that... Got something, like a crack or something there? There's a small nick out of the bowl here, look. It appears to have been made relatively recently. And see how there are little scrapes and dents all over it? It's clearly a well-loved pipe. Yes, you're right. It seems to me recently that being well-loved goes hand in hand with getting some battle scars. This particular nick is catching my eye, though, because it's clearly new. It looks to be in a sorry state with that bandage around it, doesn't it? But for some reason, it feels slightly ominous to me, like it's trying to shout out a warning. Probably best it's the same blue as Mr. Garadeb's dressing gown. I suppose it must have considerable sentimental value to Mr. Garadeb, given that he's gone to the trouble of repairing it like this. Either that, or he can't afford to replace it. Oh! Oh! Oh, wait a second! Oh, something just twinkled inside the chamber of the pipe there. Yes, I saw it. Something stuck in there, I think. Let's turn it over and give it a shake. What's this? It's a tiny fragment of metal. Like, from a knife? Oh, shit. So if that's from the knife, then we know that the knife was blade out. Oh, damn, I think we just figured it out. It looks like the tip of a blade or something. The tip of a blade? Surely it couldn't be. Oh my goodness. Hold up, hold up, hold up. Alright, now I have to get out of this. And now I gotta check the knife again, because I checked it and I didn't notice anything about it. So let's examine that. Oh my gosh, yes! The end is cut off. Oh my goodness. Oh, look here, Mr. Naruhodo, just at the tip. A small piece of the blade appears to be missing. Wait, part of it's missing? I could be wrong, but I've just got a feeling. You remember this? Ah, that's the tiny fragment of metal that we found inside Mr. Garadeb's pipe. Yes, and just maybe. We got it, we got it. Oh my, it's a perfect fit. Somehow, I just knew it. Oh no, this is... I mean, I'm happy I solved it, but at the same time I'm like, oh, poor Joan. Maybe she shouldn't be throwing knives around, but... If only she could have gone to anger management. Now she'll be charged with involuntary... Well, not manslaughter. I'm like Patricia. I keep thinking the victim's dead, but... Involuntary attempted murder? Is that a thing? What can you tell the court about the knife used to attack the victim? Alright, plenty of knives around our place. Can't say I noticed if one or two went missing, I'm afraid. Okay, this is probably where I'm going to be like, Let's get him to talk more about the knife. Sorry, would you care to elaborate? Nothing to say, really. Rather partial to a spot of carving, you see. Pipes and whatnot. Fishing tackle. You know, the sort of thing. It's a passion we both share. I like to carve little wooden trinkets, too. And then there's my leather work. Sorry to say, we're always losing knives about the place, and we have dozens of things. They sell them at the market sometimes. 20 for the price of 19. Needless to say, I snap them up. John prefers to use 2 knives at mealtime, too, instead of a knife and fork. Now, Joan. We don't want people thinking I'm some kind of savage. Ah! Here we go again with the scaldings. Why are they being so evasive? I imagine it's because they don't want to believe it. They can't bear the thought that it might have been one of their knives that injured the victim. Which is entirely understandable, of course. But still, so, like, did John not notice the metal? And I'm assuming he must not have noticed the metal inside the pipe, because he would have gotten rid of it. And also, he wouldn't have just willingly given us the pipe to investigate. Go on with your testimony, witnesses. Sir, it's like this part of the game where I'm like, okay, I know exactly, like, what happened. Or I have a good idea what happened. It's just, I have to get to it. Alright, here's the thing. So we're gonna press this. Should I even bother pressing this? Like, I'll press it. But I'm like, this is where I'm sure I have to present the evidence. So you have no intention of admitting it was your knife, unless we can produce proof. Oh. Even though there's no other credible possibility if Mr. Natsume is innocent.
Objection.
You forget, my Nipponese friend. that it has yet to be established that the accused is not responsible for the attack. As if I could forget. If only there was some way to know who had handled the knife. I know, but I suppose wizardry like that is just a dream. Perhaps you're thinking of fingerprinting, Mr. Naruhodo. What? You mean it's not a dream? That sort of wizardry really exists? Whenever people touch anything, they leave behind a unique pattern from their skin, or so they say. But I can't see anything. There are already countries in the world where these so-called fingerprints can be used as evidence. Lord Strongheart is currently discussing the matter at the Ministry of Justice. Yes, I believe we are rapidly approaching an era of scientific methods of investigation. But for now, we shall have to find an alternative method of proving our assertion that this knife found in the victim's back was originally in Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb's house. Ugh, if only I could transplant this whole incident to several years in the future. Alright, so I'm going to have to do it all again and present right at the end. That's the extent of their testimony, is it? What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? I know exactly what to do. Well, I think we've heard all this before, to be honest. I can't say I'm particularly confident that we'll be able to prove anything new from this testimony. But in this cross-examination, it's absolutely essential that we establish how this knife came to be at the scene of the incident. Yes, I know. I'm sure both of them must be feeling very worried. Worried that if it were in fact a knife belonging to one of them that caused the victim's injury. If we could find even a tiny shred of evidence to support that theory, it would clinch this trial for us. It would explain everything. Yes, it would. So for Saseki-san's sake, we must find that last crucial piece of evidence. I should have just presented the evidence, damn it. But I like to press everything, just in case. Alright, so here it is. We are going to present. This right here.
Objection.
Mr. Garadeb, could I ask you to take a good look at this, please? You can ask, but I can't see a bally thing. You can't? Used to call me Dead-Eye Deb back in the regiment, of course. Oh, but that was some time ago. So he absolutely would have hid the evidence if he had known it was there. Even when I'm trying to enjoy a large print book by the fire these days, I struggle to tell a B from a D and a P from a Q, to be honest. Oh, he does. Dearie me, it's rather wearing being asked about every other letter and every other word. You must very dizzy. What is that? A tiny scrap of metal. Yes, almost certainly from the tip of a blade. And what may appear at first to be just a tiny scrap is in fact a crucial piece of evidence. Interesting. And where did the defense come by this evidence? It was lodged in the chamber of Mr. Garadeb's pipe. My pipe, you say? By Jove, I wonder how that got there. And what precisely does this fragment of metal signify, Counsel? Are you suggesting it is in some way related to the matter of the stabbing on Briar Road? I am. What? When put together with another piece of evidence already in the court record, I believe this tiny fragment of metal will unravel the whole truth of this case, my lord. Oh, I love that I just noticed she's standing on a box. That's so cute. You appear rather confident in that extraordinary statement, Counsel. Well, I'm an extraordinary lawyer, as you said. Very well then, present the pertinent evidence to the court. What evidence, when paired with this fragment of metal, allegedly reveals the truth of the entire case? The jackknife.
Take that!
This is the knife that was found in the victim's back. If you look closely, you'll see that there's a small piece at the tip of the blade that's missing. A common issue with the inferior blades sold at unsavory street markets. Criminals who use them regularly leave the tips lodged in their victims' bones. And what of this particular knife? That's probably the only reason the woman didn't die is because the tip of it had already been sheared off, otherwise she may have died. No doubt its tip had suffered a similar fate now, languishing somewhere near the spine of the victim.
Objection!
It's kind of like an unfortunate thing. Like, it's unfortunate that the woman just happened to be passing by when she got stabbed from above by a knife, but also kind of lucky that at least the tip sheared off, so it wasn't fatal. No, that's not the case. The tip of this particular knife's blade is the very fragment of metal we discovered in the chamber of Mr. Garadeb's pipe. Ah, good grief, Lord Van Zeeks. I don't believe it. The knife from the crime scene and this fragment of metal are a perfect match. Good golly gosh. Oh, I just noticed his back, the back of his jacket is all burned up too. Order, order, order. Is this sort of some sort of Eastern sorcery? This is no magic, my lord. This is a miracle. A miracle? So Van Zeeks has figured it out, has he? Counsel, explain this extraordinary coincidence at once. Yes, my lord. The crucial point we have to ask ourselves here is when did the fragment of metal find its way inside Mr. Garadeb's pipe? Something that was clarified for us in the most recent witness testimony. Had this thing in my hand as usual at the time of the onslaught. Knocked it clean out with one of her soft projectiles she did, yes. It would never have been sent flying unless it was hit by something pretty solid. Aw, Joan. Oh, dearie me. During the argument between those two that occurred just as the victim was on the pavement below, Mrs. Garadeb flung this knife at her husband. However, the knife missed Mr. Garadeb, instead striking the pipe in his hand at the time, which caused the tip to break off, of course. Good lord. Yes, and it is when that tiny tip of the blade found its way into Mr. Garadeb's pipe. The chances of that are 1,000,000 to 1. And yet, there's no other credible explanation for how the tip of the blade ended up in your pipe. Then, after losing its tip, the knife ricocheted off the pipe and flew out the open window. Just a whole lot of sad happenstances, just like with Kazuma's case. In short, this knife, which fell from the window of the Garadeb's house, is the very same knife that struck the victim in the middle of the back on the street below. Oh gosh, oh dear, oh. No!
Objection!
He's got his chalice back. He's like, I was a little rattled there for a second. I'm gonna get back into character here. A full body theory, I'll give you that. Oh, we're not done yet. A complex bouquet of seemingly trivial points plausibly arranged to create an almost passable vintage. Allow me to toast my learned friend's characteristically Nipponese approach to bottling his argument. Sorry? But after all, it's just a theory. The bottle, I fear, is corked. Because you see... I love when he puts the leg up. It's spoiled by an insurmountable inconsistency. An insurmountable what? Lord Van Zeeks, explain yourself. What is this inconsistency you claim to have identified? An inconsistency of the simplest nature, my lord. The victim was found with the knife planted in the middle of her back. Yes, in her... Oh. That's right. You silly little man. Now, Joan, old thing. What are you getting so excited about? Let us consider the basic facts of the case once more. The victim was walking along the pavement before being stabbed in the back and falling to the ground. If the knife that struck her had fallen from above, there's no possible way it could have planted itself into the victim's back. Yeah. Oh no, but I think I said this before. I'm guessing what happened was the book fell first. The woman bent down to pick it up, and as she was bent down, then the knife got her in the back. I got it. Quite right. You see, that's exactly right. The knife had fallen on her from above. It would have struck her on the top of her head. Well, he's lost for words, look. I knew it. I never liked his theory in the first place. I don't know, though. What really did happen? It would appear the defense has made rather a spectacular blunder. If a theory has even one inconsistency, it cannot stand. Your theory, my learned friend, is history. We were so close. I could see the truth. I was so sure we were on the right track. But now the way's been blocked completely by just one simple inconsistency. Or, in other words, we simply need to eliminate that one inconsistency. The theory will stand. Miss Usato. You mustn't worry, Mr. Naruhodo. You were just caught off guard, that's all, and your mind went blank. But if the path you were on is indeed correct, then a way will present itself. The key to that is in the court record, I'm sure. All the information you need is there. It seems you have nothing to say, my Nipponese friend. Well, your silence speaks volumes. A tacit acceptance that your theory is fatally flawed. No. I got this. I'm sure I got it. This inconsistency doesn't mean I was on the wrong track. It means that I need to sharpen my mind and dig deeper for the truth. It's a test. Yes. If the knife fell on the victim from above, there's no way it could have hit her in the middle of her back. Under normal circumstances, that is. What are you implying? Counsel. There is a piece of evidence in the court record that can explain this inconsistency. That can explain how the knife that fell from above could have pierced the victim's back. We already have the answer. Goodness. Utter madness. Surely this must be the last time. Counsel, present the evidence of which you speak. This is the last inconsistency, the final piece in the puzzle. If I can successfully make sense of this, the truth will be laid bare at last. The evidence that explains how the falling knife became lodged in the victim's back is the fourth book.
Take that!
This, the fourth book found at the scene. This is the final piece of evidence the defense will present. The burnt book? Is that not Mr. Garadeb's book? Yes, and to understand its significance, we have to consider how it came to be at the scene in the first place. This photographic print clearly shows the book in question, and the victim holding it in her hand. But as we now know, it was the police constable that put the book between her fingers like that. Quite so, as part of his wholesale transplanting of the crime scene to the opposite side of the road. That's true, however. As part of his testimony, Constable Beat made an extremely enlightening statement on that point. But what made you place that book in the victim's hand? Oh, well, sir, that's because that's how I found it. When we first ran over to the scene, the victim was already holding the book. So, when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. In other words, the victim had already picked up the book of her own volition. And here I was thinking it'd been, like, transplanted by someone after the fact, and clearly that must have been before she suffered the knife wound. Well, I should say so. After being attacked with a knife, I don't imagine she'd have been doing much of anything. So, the question becomes, why did the victim have the book in her hand? By Jingo. I think I'm beginning to see what may have happened now. Oh, dearie me. We know that the book fell from the top floor of the Garadeb household onto the pavement below, at precisely the moment that the victim was walking past. Yes, at exactly that moment. The young woman was walking along the street in the light fog, when all of a sudden, a book fell right in front of her. The book I threw. Yes, Mrs. Garadeb, and what do you think the woman did? What would you do if you were walking along and suddenly a book landed in front of you on the pavement? Well, I really can't imagine it, but I suppose she might have reached down and picked the book up. Yes, that is exactly what the woman in fact did. She picked up the book. Oh, oh heavens. And when the woman reached down to pick the fallen book up, what position would her back have been in? That's right, facing the sky, completely and utterly defenseless. Then, in the very next moment, while the woman was still bent over picking up the book, that poor woman! The next object fell from the room above, the jackknife straight into the middle of her back. And at the same time, walking by chance directly behind Miss Green, was the defendant, Mr. Soseki Natsume, who barely got mentioned at all during the second half. Well, I never. It appeared to Mr. Natsume that the woman simply collapsed on the floor, in the dark and the fog. He didn't see the knife falling on her from above. And from the other direction, the constable and his wife saw no one but the victim and her apparent attacker. So there never was a real culprit to run from the scene in the first place. No, this was nothing more than a series of unlikely events that culminated in an unfortunate accident. And that is the real truth behind this case. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb. The very first time you showed me that knife, I had my suspicions. I wondered if perhaps it might have been something like that. There, old bean. Poor Mrs. Garadeb. This is another one I can't feel too happy about. Of course, I never meant for anything of the sort to happen, but it was all my fault, wasn't it? I feel like she should be subjected to, like, anger management classes. I don't think she should go to prison. But maybe don't throw, like, a knife that's actually, like, you know... throwing a pocket knife that's closed is one thing, but throwing one with the blade out? Ugh. I take full responsibility. I let my anger get the better of me. I threw that book. And I threw the knife as well. John, dear. It's all right. I know. I'm ever so sorry. Truly. I'm sorry! Maybe apologize to the victim as well. Oh, like their wedding photo, but not really. This is definitely a lot more comical than the Kazuma incident because, like, at least the victim didn't die. Lord Van Zeeks, what news of Mrs. Garadeb? She's been taken to the infirmary. It would appear that today's events have left her in an especially flustered state. However, I believe she will recover in due course. There is no cause for concern. Yes, unbeknownst to themselves, they caused what could easily have been a terrible tragedy. They shall have to prepare themselves for the consequences of their actions. There is some good news, however. My lord, I'm guessing the victim woke up? I just had word from the hospital where the victim is being treated. Her condition is improving steadily, and the doctor believes she will regain consciousness soon. It's strange. We've been talking about the victim all this time, but we've never once met her. How wonderful. The woman is out of danger, it seems. Yes, that is good news. So, Mr. Soseki Natsume. He's finally appeared, his first time appearing. Since the beginning of the trial. Yes. On behalf of my fellow countrymen, I would like to take this opportunity to beg your pardon, sir. You came from your distant eastern homeland to study our great British culture, and have been repaid with immeasurable unkindness. Please accept our heartfelt apologies. No, it is me who should be begging your pardon. Does he feels bad for, like, leaving the woman behind? Oh no, Mr. Natsume. That evening, when the young woman just collapsed on the pavement before my eyes, I jumped to the wrong conclusion again in my confusion. What conclusion, sir? I was sure that the woman was dead. Yes, Constable Beat said the same thing, didn't he? He thought she'd been killed too. I suppose she must have looked completely lifeless. It's been about a year since I arrived in Great Britain now, but I still can't get used to life here. I can't relax. I'm sure there are evil spirits lurking in the fog, like they're haunting me. Poor Soseki-san. His imagination really has got the better of him. Yes, poor man. So, when it happened, I thought the young woman had been taken by the fog spirits. I should never have dropped my books like that and run away. I should have called for help, for a doctor, for the police. Instead, I've managed to create a rift in the relationship of trust between our two empires, and for that, I am truly sorry. Well, this is kind of a heartwarming ending, at least. Nobody died, people apologized to each other. One could indeed say that some sort of mischievous spirit has been at work here, I think. One that created a chain of unfortunate mishaps. We were befooled by this spirit, it led to false conclusions. But thanks to Lord Van Zeeks and our young lawyer here from the east, that chain has now been broken, and the spirit exorcised. I heartily commend you both. Oh. Hopefully Soseki won't die to the Reaper after this. Now then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Yes, my lord. In concluding this trial, I must ask one last time for your decisions regarding the defendant's culpability. Are you ready to present your findings to the court? As the foreman of this jury, I can assure you we've reached a fair and just conclusion. I do declare the truth can be extremely cruel at times. Well, I didn't suspect the woman next to me, that's for sure. John's here, sitting in for the old bean while she's out of action, you know? But I know what her decision would be. Does this mean I'll finally be able to get out of here and start work? Well, it's about time. I say, I'll have a corker of a story to tell the grandchildren when I get home, won't I? Very well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I hereby demand your final decisions. Mr. Foreman.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Very well. Mr. Soseki Natsume, I hereby pronounce you not guilty. Confetti! Yay! And fireworks! And finally, Mr. Natsume. Oh, yes, Lord, sir. You are now a free man once more. It is my hope you will continue to further your education in British culture. And may you never again be brought before me. Oh, yes, sir, of course. On my life, I swear I'll never set foot in a courtroom again. I'm transported to tears. Thank you, counsels. Court is adjourned. Man, that was a long one, but that was a good one. I liked all the twists and turns it took, as usual. I think that's my favorite one so far. Mostly because we got the investigation and the trial, and also because Sholmes showed up. I was kind of hoping he would be on the, the witness stand, but can't have everything. I hope he'll show up at the end here at least. Oh, Locum. Wait, you mean me? Of course. Is there another Locum here? Is there even one? Compared to the original Locum student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, your name has become rather short, hasn't it? What's wrong with using my actual name? Oh, at last, I'm free, I'm free. Joyful, joyous, jubilant, jubilation. Heady, hearty, happiness, hurrah. Oh, I am pleased. Mr. Natsume is delighted. It's nice to actually, defend someone and be like, okay, I know for sure that they are not guilty, unlike the last one. Would it be so hard to just say that, then? Locum, you did it. You saved me from the brink. Well, what happened to the poor woman was in no way your fault after all. I'm just glad everyone can see that now. No, not that. Lovely, loyal, locum lawyer. Yes? I mean, as I said before, I have just never got used to life here in Great Britain. Every time I look over my shoulder, I see foreigners, I see towering brick buildings, and from high up windows I see them looking down on me, laughing. Look at that little hunchback. What we've learned from all this, Suzuki, is shave your mustache. Apparently, that makes you very suspicious to people. Oh dear, I'm sure it's all in your head, Mr. Natsume. I don't know, Susato, did you hear the jury talking about him? But today, you, locum lawyer, gave my gloom to the boot. You stood firm behind that baronial bench before all those babbling British. You battled to the bitter end, laying bare the baffling truth. And when I beheld the blinding fireworks among the beams of the Bailey's roof, I bellowed, "Behold the best barrister ever born!" Well, that's very flattering, and we're very pleased for you. This has given me a wonderful anecdote to recount to my old friends back in Japan. An anecdote? Is that what's to become of all my hard work? Ah, there you are, my dear fellows. That better be Sholmes. Yeah, my boy. I apologize for keeping you waiting. I rose late this morning. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, what a pleasure to see you. I'm Susato. We are fangirling. I see I am here not a moment too soon. A disaster has been averted, I'm glad to say. Oh. The trial shall begin presently, Mr. Naruhodo, and I wish you the very best of luck. It's just finished. What? No. Then my haste was in vain? Ah, it's you. Her, Locke Sholmes. Oh, have we met, sir? This is Mr. Natsume, the man you had arrested, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, I see. I failed to recognize you at first. Our previous encounters have taken place in the gloom, either of your bleak lodgings or that prison cell. I simply couldn't place that curious face in the light. Charming. This is all your fault, Her Locke Sholmes. You're the reason I had to go through this terrible ordeal. I'm going to give you a piece of my mind. My apologies, sir, but I assure you, I have placed you now. You're the fellow who abandoned that poor young lady and ran off, are you not? Wow, read him his rights. Ah. Had she been taken to hospital more urgently, I feel perhaps she would have regained consciousness by now. Damn. Oh. But it was unavoidable, I'm sure. We are but human after all. Anyone would have been shaken by such an experience. Oh. I do feel very badly about how I behaved. Well, never mind. Now then, what was it that you wanted to say to me, sir? Nothing. Ha ha ha. Priceless. Oh, I am sorry, really, but that was quite priceless. Poor Sozaki-san. Still, on the bright side, you've had an extremely entertaining experience without paying a penny. And, it would seem, you were not even found guilty. But there is no bright side. What? You were so happy just a second ago. Whatever do you mean, Mr. Natsume? Even after this, I'm still cursed. By the spirits. Oh, the Reaper. And now by the Reaper. Ah, Lord Van Zeeks. Maybe you should go back to Japan, just in case. I haven't forgotten, you know, what facing that man in court means. Even if you're found not guilty, you're still doomed. It will all be alright, Mr. Natsume. If the Reaper appears trying to make trouble, I will protect you. Hiya! With a perfectly executed Susato takedown. Much as I like being turned on my head, a bit of warning might be nice next time, Miss Susato. So, Mr. Natsume, what do you intend to do now? You mentioned something about recounting your experiences to your friends back in Japan. Yes, I intend to return to my homeland soon. Oh. It has already been a year since I arrived here in Great Britain. I have visited universities, libraries, bookshops. I've been honored with the tutelage of professors. I've learned so much about the wealth of literature here and the city it has shaped. And I've come to realize it is my calling to sail home and tell my fellow countrymen about it. That's very touching, Mr. Natsume. Or, in perhaps less veiled terms, you're running from the Reaper. You wish to withdraw halfway around the world to escape the terror of the Reaper's curse. That's not it at all. The more I learn of literature, the more this strange feeling claws at my insides. I feel compelled to return to my roots and attempt to pen a work of my own. Oh, I see. A work of literature by Soseki-san. Could be an interesting read. So yeah, apparently he was an actual author. Something about cats, because he has a cat, and he describes people as cats. I do like the references to, like, real-world people. And what about Miss Susato and yourself, Mr. Naruhodo? Sorry? What about us? Will you return to Japan alongside your mustached compatriot? Why would we? A week has not yet passed since we arrived in London, and only now does it feel as though we have finally found our feet. And you are accommodated in a hotel at present, are you not? Are we gonna stay with Sholmes? That's right, but we need to find lodgings before it banks for us. Oh my god, we are gonna be roommates with Sholmes. I've calculated we can only afford another 10 nights before our entire budget is exhausted. Well then, you could take my lodgings. Oh, the windowless room. But what it lacks in windows, it more than makes up for with a floor, a ceiling, and walls. Great. And, of course, I'd be happy to leave behind the accursed evil spirit. Oh my, an evil spirit. Yes, I'm sure we'd also like to stay at the place owned by the people that we accused of, you know, attempted murder. Oh, yes. It tries to suffocate you while you sleep. That's your cat. It's an infallible wake-up call. We'll think about it, if that's alright. Perhaps I can offer a more welcome alternative. Yay! Would you consider taking lodgings with me? Oh, as if you have to ask. Come on, if he ever asked me that, I'd be like, yeah. Really? Susato's like my dreams coming true. Well, a vacancy has conveniently presented itself. Though it is up the attic. In the attic, I might add. Are you sure it isn't just a storage loft? I spoke with the landlady this very morning on the matter of price, and Iris is cleaning the room as we speak. You must come at once. I presume you have no luggage to speak of? Oh, this is simply wonderful. What an honor to be invited to take lodgings in the great detective's office's attic. I'm too overcome for words. So suggesting we look elsewhere is out then. Then it's settled. Iris will prepare a welcome dinner this evening. And you must come too, Mr. Natsume. I insist. I don't know what to say, but thank you, and yes. Wonderful. Then I'll go and complete the paperwork for your formal release, Mr. Natsume. It shan't take long. This feels so much more hopeful than the last one. Somebody's happy. Locum, I knew that you wouldn't let me down. I'm truly delighted to have met you here in London. Likewise, Mr. Natsume. It's been a privilege meeting you two. It's a shame that we're going to have to say goodbye so soon. Well, I've come to realize that I belong in Japan. But Locum, we'll meet again one day. Yes, I'm sure. And hopefully by then, I'll be a successful lawyer. Hopefully by then, I'll be a successful author. Well, my dear fellow, our carriage appears to have arrived. Shall we go, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, Mr. Sholmes. I've little doubt Mr. Natsume will be released in time for dinner this evening. And so, with Soseki-san's innocence successfully established, we rode with Mr. Sholmes to what was to become our new home. 221B Baker Street. Oh, it's cozy. It's cozy. Like, I could see if you spruce that up, that's something that you could charge now. You could charge, like, $2,000 a month for in certain cities, easily. So this is to be our new office, yes. Our office. I rather like the sound of that. Me too. It's simply wonderful, isn't it? I hope you can see this, Kazuma. It's only a small step, but I'd like to think we're getting a little closer to your dream now. So, my dear fellows, do you like the place? Oh, whoa. Ooh, he just got even hotter. Look at that hair. Look at that vest. Damn. Mr. Sholmes, yes, thank you so much. It's a delightful room, Mr. Sholmes. I simply adore it. Good. I'm pleased to hear it. Iris and I are delighted to welcome you. I hope everyone's hungry. It's nearly time for dinner. We'll eat as soon as Mr. Natsume arrives. We have a lot to celebrate. Iris, you must let me help you. Alright then, Susie. You can be in charge of salad. Splendid. So, Mr. Naruhodo, how does it feel to have your own office in the capital? It's very exciting, actually. I can't help wondering what adventures await us. Well, I mean, I know at least in this game there's only one case left, but I know that there's a sequel, so... Those were precisely my sentiments when I first established my office at this premises. Until I discovered the dark truth about the city of London, that is. Sorry? London is a glorious place, full of wonder, opportunity, prosperity, and mirth. But the brightest of lights cast the darkest of shadows. Shadows? What do you mean? Well, I believe you're well aware of the murkiness that lies behind London's facade already. So, once again, Mr. Naruhodo. Welcome to London. This must be what Kazuma was talking about coming here to investigate or change. Of course, at the time, I had no idea of the significance of those words Mr. Sholmes so casually spoke, but it wasn't long before my turn came to lift the facade and see the true depth of the murk that lay behind it. I'm guessing it's got something to do with the Chief of Justice. That was such a good one! Oh my gosh, I love that trial. Alright guys, that will do it for the end of the 4th trial. As you heard me gushing about, definitely has been my favorite one so far in this game. And, I mean, we are living with Sholmes. Like, how much better can you get? Like, all in all, just a good time. That was really good. And I am very excited to see what this last trial has in store for us. You know, we're coming to the end of this game pretty soon, so... kind of a bummer, but I'm also excited to see, like, the finale ones usually tend to be really good, so I'm excited to see what it's going to be all about. So thank you guys so much for watching this episode, and stay tuned next week for part 14. Until then, bye. Special shout out to my top tier patrons: Nana, Sparky, Dumbass Loser, Tequila Mockingbird, Puncake G, Joel Ostman, Harry Gazif, Asborn Kennedy, Icognito, and Jared Fan.